Aunt Margie. Family reunion, 1991.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Aunt Margie, you are the sixth child?
I am the fifth.
Fifth? You have how many brothers and sisters? Or had at one time?
We had 4 boys and 3 girls.
Yeah. So you have Angie, Joe, Tony, Ida,
No,
Tessie, Ida.
no Ida.
You didn't have a sister, Ida? No? And Bill.
Ida was the sister-in-law.
Right, okay. What do you remember, what are your earliest recollections of living with your brothers and sisters in New York? Which house were you born in, do you know?
Well, I was born on in the village on Christopher and Thompson Street.
Yeah.
I was the first born here when my mother came from Europe. And then I don't remember from there. We lived in Cherry Street, 334 Cherry Street, New York City. And but I think before that we were living somewhere else because my brother Ernie was born.
Well,
I don't know if we were living on Cherry Street or Front Street, but we were.
you lived a lot of places.
We were in the city, quite a few places in the city.
Of those places, which one do you remember the best?
I remember Cherry Street.
You lived there the longest?
Well, I remember that because I was old enough to remember.
You remember enough to describe what it looked like, what the place was like?
Well, we had an apartment, and we had nice neighbors, and I had all my friends. And my brothers were all with us, and we were pretty good. We had, in fact, we had 2 apartments because the family was big. We had an apartment down on the first floor and one upstairs. We used to go sleep upstairs, just bedrooms, and downstairs we used to eat and have our dinner and breakfast or whatever. But I don't remember too much about school at that time, when I started and all, but I remember going to Catholic school, and I didn't like that because I was always late, and I used to go with my sister Tessie. She was a little older than me, 3 years older, and she was always getting reprimanded from the nuns because she was always late, and when she used to get reprimanded, I used to go and late, and I was afraid. But then we went to public school. I don't know when that happened because I don't remember too much as a child. But we lived on Cherry Street for quite a number of years, I think until I was about 12 or 13 years old.
And then...
we moved to Connecticut for a short time.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I guess it was about 8 months you lived in Connecticut?
We lived in Connecticut for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Astoria.
I wanted to ask you about Westport. You lived in Westport.
Westport was a beautiful house, but my father worked in the city, and he used to come out on weekends, and it was very, very rough.
He lived with Angie?
He lived with Angie in the apartment in Astoria. And my mother had the kids, and we used to go. My brother Tony, I think, worked. My brother Joe worked, and Tessie and I used to go to school.
In Westport?
In Westport.
Where did you go? Do you remember?
I don't remember the school.
Staples?
I don't remember.
Was grammar school or high school or junior high?
Grammar school.
Grammar school?
Yeah.
What was it like to go from Cherry Street to Westport?
Well, we didn't like it too much because it's too much of a country. We were used to more people and friends, which we lost our friends, and but we were there such a short time, but we enjoyed the heat because we never had heat in Cherry Street. We had a beautiful home in Connecticut with heat and
steam heat,
hot water, you know. And in the apartment, my mother had to use oil stoves, and I don't know how she heated the hot water. Maybe on the stove to bathe us. And we used to take sponge baths, but as far as the bathrooms, they were in the hall in the city, whereas in Connecticut, we had a regular home with a bathroom, and it felt like paradise. But we didn't last there too long. We moved back to Astoria, and that wasn't such a nice. I mean, it was nice, but it was an old house. And we had to make our own heat again. My mother had to use coal.
You moved from Astoria, from Westport to Astoria,
yeah,
but Astoria
because
was...
my sister lived there, and
Angie.
they looked for an apartment, for a place there. And this was a real old house that they could afford. My mother and father, we weren't able to buy anything too expensive because he had a job and he had to support 7 children, and there was no money in the bank then. So she rented. She didn't buy, she rented this house. I think she was paying $25 a month. And I remember she used to put coal in the stove in the kitchen and used to heat up one room only upstairs because it had a vent in the ceiling. And we used to go to bed dressed instead of undressed. And there were icicles on the windows in the wintertime until the springtime. And we experienced that. And then as we got older, each one got married and went on their own. You know, I went to elementary school and I graduated, and I went to high school, and right out of high school I got married. My sister got married a month before me. Angie was already married, but she was living with us because her husband got sick. And she came in to live with us with her son. But that's it. Then we got married and we had our own lives. But my mother still lived there for a while, and then she moved to 40th, was it? No, it wasn't 40th there. It was 30th area in Astoria, and she bought a home then. She was able to buy a home.
That's the one I would remember with the workshop in the back.
Yeah. They
what was the address of that?
Gee, I forget the address, but that was on 30th Drive. I think it was 1419, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that, 1419 30th Drive, because it was on it was close to 14th Street, you know, the avenue there. And my mother liked it. I mean, she finally got herself a home, and she put heat in the house at the time, because my father then was able to make more money because he was working for defense. You know, war broke out, and they were making more money, and they put heat in the house, and they put siding on the house, and they fixed it up the way they wanted it. But we were already out. I mean, I was married, Tessie was married. Angie lived upstairs. Angie took the apartment upstairs.
That I remember. Did you speak English? Did you speak Italian as a child?
We used to speak Italian most of the time at home.
Were you brought up speaking both English and Italian?
No,
Where did you learn English?
We had to go to school.
So you went to school not knowing any English?
No, because my mother and father didn't speak English.
Do you still remember any Italian? Can you speak Italian now?
Very, very few words. I mean, I understand it, but I can't speak it as well as I used to. So you lose that. In fact, the words don't come out the same as they used to. Mm. My mother tried to speak English. After a while, she used to hear us and speak to us, like answer us in English, or tried to speak English, but most of the time was Italian all the way through. But my father also, he tried. He used to have, my father was very intelligent. He had dictionaries and he used to read a lot, and he tried to speak English at work, and because he worked until he was 78 years old. They retired him. He wouldn't retire. So, yeah, it was tough. He got sick.
Your father was an inventor and a machinist?
Yeah, he was very intelligent. And he had gotten sick. He had an obstruction, but they thought it was cancer, which it wasn't. But he died of a heart attack. He was in a coma for about 3 days. And then he passed away, but he was, I think, 87 years old, 86 years old, something like that. Yeah, he was always in that little house in the back doing things on his own. He used to pass time there, get out of my mother's way. But then again, when they lose one partner, they don't last long. My mother really missed him. She had no children, and my father was the only one she used to have there, cook for him, and then she got sick also, and she lasted maybe 4 years. And then they sold the house, and everybody is on their own. It's sad, but that's the way it is.
Now you have your own family. You have a son and a daughter.
I have a son and a daughter. I have a beautiful granddaughter. She's 19, be 20 next month. And my son, he's a good boy. No complaints, thank God.
And you live in Greenpoint?
We live in Little Neck, and we have a summer place out in the island in Greenport.
So Little Neck is this way, and Greenport
is way
all the way
all out east.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the middle more, and Little Neck is in the middle, in between. We're in the Queens area, which is considered New York area, and then we go out to the island, which takes us an hour and a half or so without traffic to get there, and we enjoy it. We're on the water, and we have that place 30 years now.
Tell me what you remember about Tessie.
Oh, she was funny.
As a teenager, and well, what's the age difference between Tessie and you?
Tessie and I are 3 years apart. But she was a son of a gun. She didn't care. She did her thing, and that was it. If she had to go out with a fellow or a boyfriend or boys, she went out. When she came home, she'd get yelled at, and she said, "Oh, I had a good time. I don't care if they yell at me." And my father just, after a while, I think it took him many years to realize that he couldn't do anything with Tessie. And he just gave up. And he figured, well, she's old enough now to know what she's doing. And she was a different type than I was. I was more timid. I was afraid to do things, but she wasn't. She would do it and then say, "I don't care if I get yelled at when I go home." Many a times we used to get home later than my brothers, and that was forbidden in the Italian family. The boys had to be out later than the girls. And to get in the house, we used to throw stones at the window, so my brother would wake up and open the door. My mother used to have the latch on the door. Well, I says, "Tessie, you come home so late, you have to..." See, she used to go out with her boyfriend. I used to go out with Mike. But she was always late. We used to say, "We'll meet at a certain time." She was never on time. I said, "Tessie, we're getting home so late." She said, "That's okay, don't worry, we'll get in the house." I said, "But we don't have keys." We weren't allowed to have keys. They wouldn't give us keys them days. We were bad if you had keys to the girl having keys to get home anytime she wanted. Forget it. The boys had a key maybe. But my brother Joe used to be home before us, and oh my God, I say, oh my God, my mother used to have a big latch behind the door. Zoom, we used to go right over. And nobody got in unless he got up to open the latch. But Tessie was a little tiger. She didn't care. She was fun though. We used to have a lot of fun with her.
And Angie?
Angie, well, Angie, when she was going out with her first husband, I was only a kid, and I remember the wedding. I was about 11 years old when she got married, because she's 10 years older than me. And I remember her apartment. She had a beautiful apartment in Astoria. I used to go there a lot because we lived in Astoria then. And I used to take care of her son, Billy. Now he's in his 50s. And then, of course, her husband got very sick. He had to be put in the hospital, and then she moved back with my mother. And she found a job. She went to work for Barricini Candy Company, and my mother took care of little Billy. And then she met Charlie through some friends of that she worked. They said they were going to introduce her. They said they were going to introduce her to this nice guy. It was Charlie. And she fell in love with Charlie right away. And I don't know how long she went out with him, but they got married and they had 2 daughters, plus her son with her first marriage. And when they moved out of when my mother passed away, they had to sell the house, and she moved to another place in Astoria. And then they sold that place. The people sold that place because she was renting, and then she moved where she is now, and she's still there now. I don't know how many years she's there now. She's there quite a number of years. And Camille is still with her. Camille is the youngest daughter. But Suzanne is married, and she's upstate. I forget the area where she is, but she's upstate. She has 2 children. And they're grown. Her oldest boy is it's going to be 19. No, he's going to be 20, like my granddaughter. And the young one is about 15, I think, or 16.
Tell me about Ernie.
Oh, he's a son of a gun. Him and I don't know what it was, but he used to always fight with me. He used to always punch me in the stomach. I used to have a fit. I used to tell my mother, he's always punching me. But I don't remember too much about my brothers as a youngster. But I remember him always fighting with me, but he doesn't remember. He wouldn't remember. So Bill was only I don't know how I don't remember Bill too much as a child. But Ernie and I were closer because I think we're only 14 months apart. But Bill was born, how old is Bill today? 63, something like that? I might be about 5 years older than Bill. I don't remember too much about it. I remember when he was born, though. I heard a baby crying. And we lived in my mother had all the children in the apartment. And I remember her the midwife came and chased everybody out. And all of a sudden I says, why are we getting chased? I says, of course, them days they didn't explain to you there was a baby going to be born. And Bill was born, and we heard a baby crying. And my sister Angie says to my mother, we have to name him Billy. My mother says, well, where do you get Billy from? Because that was her boyfriend's name. So she says, no, we have to name him Billy, William. So that's what my mother named him. And she had a pretty tough Angie with her. She cared for her husband. He was 15 years older than her. And I was just thinking about them the other day. I says, Angie's 78. He would have been 94. I said, oh my God. But he was an Irish guy. He was a nice fellow. It's too bad he got sick. But Charlie's good. He's got a lot of patience, Charlie. A lot of patience to be married to Angie. Because Angie's a good woman, but like Charlie says, she could upset high mass.
How about Tony?
Tony, he was a good guy. He used to make us laugh. No matter when Tony was around, we used to have a good time with him. He'd come out with some things. And then when he was home, I remember him on Cherry Street when there was no work. He used to go out and look for work. I remember him bringing home a horse and carriage one day because they were selling coal. Him and his friend that lived in the apartment with us. And I forgot what they named the horse. They named him something. I forgot what the heck the horse's name was. But we used to laugh with him at the things he did. And I don't know what happened to the horse and carriage then, but I don't remember too much about Tony. He was much older to remember. But I remember when he got married, he met Ida. When we lived when we lived on Crescent Street in Astoria, he met Ida. He brought her to the house, and they got married. They had a beautiful wedding in the city, in a restaurant. We all got dressed and bought new outfits, even though we couldn't afford it. We got dressed, and they had a nice dinner in a restaurant in the city. And they lived in Brooklyn. I used to go visit them a lot. On holidays, we used to go there a lot. Because there was like a big family get-together, because she had 5 sisters and brothers, and it was a nice affair for the holidays. And too bad he got sick.
He was very different from your brother Joe, though, wasn't he?
He was more... He used to clown around a lot, you know. Joe was more serious. Joe was a serious type, you know, but he used to be funny too. Joe was he was more like my father, Joe. Very...
Fixing things and...
Yeah, he was very reserved, and he used to... He was a family man, but not the clownish type like Tony was, you know. Tony used to make us really break up. He used to come out with some stories. But Joe was calmer. He was quieter. And but after he had a couple of drinks, he used to wake up a little too. He used to be a lot of fun. We always had good times together, because we used to always go to dances together, and Marie used to have New Year's Eve parties. We'd go down there. We had good times together. We always talk about them good times too when we got together. But now it's 24 years since he's gone. Tony's gone. My daughter was married the year he died. My daughter's gonna be married 25 years, and he's gone 25 years.
Now let's just wait for this to go by. So would you say that the large family, I mean, obviously you didn't have a lot of money and all, but obviously everybody made it okay, and
Oh yeah.
what was that, you know,
It was
holding together, everybody kind of held each other?
Yeah, we sort of got used. We figured that's the way it is, you know. If we didn't have heat, that's the way it had to be. I mean, we never says, gee, this one's got heat, how come we don't have heat, or anything like that. We just lived. I mean, we'd get up, maybe sometimes we couldn't we probably never took a bath every day like we do today. It had to be maybe once a week if we took baths, and then every day you'd just wash up a little with a little bit of water that you had. And but we figured that's the way it was. I don't remember saying, gee whiz, we don't have heat, how come the others have heat, our friends have heat. We just lived. Just took it as it came. We'd go to school, come home for lunch. My mother was there, and she was always there for us, have a sandwich for us. Because the schools were close to our house, you know, no busing like today, and no cars like today. She always had hot meals at night. She made sure we had good meals.
Would you say that your mother was a tough bird?
She was tough, but yet she took care of her children good. I mean...
No, I mean like, you know, as far as a survivor, somebody who could struggle. And...
Oh yeah, she struggled a lot, because when she came from Europe, she didn't like it here at all.
She ever tell you stories about Italy? And
she told us that she cried for a year when she came here, because she hated it. She didn't like it. She says the apartment was filthy where my father was, no electric. She left a gorgeous place in Italy, marble floors and electric light. Nobody believed it. Them days they had electric light there. And she says, I cried, I wanted to go back. She says The place was filthy, bed bugs, and she says even my father was all bitten, you know, because he didn't realize what was in the beds, and he was here alone for a year. Try to make try to make a living better than Italy. But I don't think the poor things. They didn't have interpreters like they have today. They had to manage on their own, and he didn't speak well English, and it was hard for him to find jobs. They had it rough. Today they have it made, but I don't know how she did it. She really hated it. She struggled. She wanted to go back home, but I guess she couldn't. That was it. She started to have more children. I was born, and Ernie was born, and Bill was born. They were 4 born on the other side. Tony, Joe, Tessie, and Angie. Angie is the oldest of the girls. I have a picture of them, my mother with her 4 children, just before they came here.
I'd like to see that.
It's a beautiful picture. Angie has it also in the living room. It's a beautiful, you could see their shoes with the buttons, you know, like the old times. And my brother Tony with his short pants. My Aunt Angie had a bow in her head. My mother dressed them cute. I mean, to take the picture, they looked nice. But I'm not in it. My sister, everybody looks at that picture and says, "Where, is that you?" No, I'm not born yet. I wasn't born yet. But it wasn't easy them days. The way Angie knows a lot. Angie could tell you an awful lot about when she came here on the boat, you know, and how they examined them, and if you were ill, they would send you back, and she could write a book. So.
What would you say the future generation Arcipretes about Carlo and Vincenza?
The future generation? Well, in what way do you mean the future generation?
What would you say to them? What would you want them to most remember about your parents?
Oh, that they were good parents, they were hard-working parents, and they took good care of us. I mean, we were their children, and that's what she did, take good care of us, and hard-working people.
Good.